Hello, I hope you're okay. This is Chess Reviews 86. Um, Today I want to look at two lesser known people from the US of A. One of them is Norman Lessing and the other is Anthony Saidy. I'm calling him Anthony, but I think he would have appreciated, he's still alive, to be called Anthony in the US way, but Anthony for the moment it is. This gives me the opportunity to plug a lovely, lovely book, this one, which isn't very well known, and it's been out for several years. The Bobby Fischer I Knew and Other Stories. I know for a fact that they didn't actually want to put Bobby's name in the title, but I think the publishers lent on them, and well, RJF is mentioned here. But I went through this book looking for references to Norman Lessing and Anthony Saidy, and I found them, but there wasn't very much. So a little bit of background about the two guys. Norman Lessing is dead. His colleague Anthony is very much still with us. His Norman's dates are 1911 to 2001, and he was called the last of the coffee house chess. Now, coffee house chess means that he favoured enjoying himself and playing in a rather more casual and relaxed style. And I can't help thinking that most amateur players would benefit from that approach. He was also, it's quite exciting, he's a US screenwriter, and he wrote the play 36. Now, I'm yet to investigate that. I do know that there's a recent musical come out in which a friend of a friend of a friend of mine is involved called Six. This is nothing to do with that, but I just threw that in. He was a member of the Stuyvesant Chess Club. I know that the name Stuyvesant through tobacco advertising. It was a manufacturer, possibly still is, of cigarettes. And it said that at the Stuyvesant, the air was thick enough to cut in chunks. And that was in Manhattan. It also adds that he was a very compassionate man. So that is Norman Lessing. Now we pass on to International Master Saidy. He was born in 1937 in Los Angeles, and he became an IM in 1969. I should hastily add, he probably would have become a GM by modern standards, but he is a doctor. His dad was also enjoyed fame working with Lucille Ball. I won't sing anymore. And was a co-writer of Finnegan's Rainbow and the lovely title, I just adore this, I Doed It. Now, Anthony Saidy wrote a book called The Dialectical Novel, based on his 3 trips, and I'm sure lifelong interest in, as I have also, the USSR. And with the problems with the war in Ukraine and very much more. I think this is the time when people who have written books need to go back to the book, not necessarily to update them, to look through them and say, what could I see? What could I see now? What, quite frankly, needs to be done, even if we ourselves as citizens can't do anything. I just chuck that bit in. Right, having given you some background, here is one of the books by one of the guys. Now, this book has not been that well received in England. This book is quite old and is beautiful condition. It was £2 net, it says on here, and it's a hardback. Can you imagine this now? It would be £30, wouldn't it? Look at it; it's an absolute beaut. Saidy wrote this book in an effort, I think, maybe directly, to mirror Racy's book, Masters of the Chessboard. I'm not sure he succeeded. There was a bit of background here. I didn't know this. Born in Los Angeles, for many years been the foremost chess masters of the United States. He was a member of the US student team in 1960. and he played for the US Olympiad team in 1964. Okay, this book is over 50 years old, came out in 1972, and it deals with history of chess through the players themselves, ending with Bobby Fischer and Spassky and Larsen and Petrosian and Smyslov and Bronstein and Keres and Reshevsky and Botvinnik, and going back to the 19th century, I think. And he talks about the mysterious pull of chess. Well, we all know that feeling. And if you don't, well, in a way, I quite envy you, perhaps. Quite a detailed introduction. Talks about the Romantic era. Let me show you. There we are. And there's the obvious games of Morphy and Anderson. Games we've seen before, but there's no harm in seeing them again. I know when this book was reviewed by Adrian Hollis in BCM, he said, particularly for a younger player who may be unaware of these games, this could be quite an exciting book. And I think it is, but it isn't quite my favourite tipple. There's a quotation about the Tsar, Nicholas. With its simple railroad pawns, the revolution had cried check to the king. Well, I think they wanted more than a board game. Don't you? Game by Botvinnik. This is in descriptive notation. I never ever like it when people say, oh, it's in the wrong notation. If you can't understand both systems, you're not a chess player. You're just a spectator, as I am in so much in my life, but not in chess. Fischer playing Najdorf in 1962 at the Olympiad. Playing Gligorich. Apparently, and I'm very grateful to my colleague John Upham for this, Fischer played a 10-game match against Gligorich. I didn't know that. Gligorich won one game, and I think he got 3 draws or something. And Bobby won 6. Here we are. Spassky beating Bronstein in the game that was in From Russia with Love. So all you Sean Connery fans out there, and I know you're there, that's where to look. Here we have Larsen beating Petrosian in a Maroczy-bind, that famous game where he sacrificed his queen. Piatigorsky's did an enormous amount. This is Piatigorsky. Jacqueline, I think, was a player, pure. And they did an enormous amount. Only coffee left. Well, please excuse me. I would have made you one, but I didn't know what you wanted. So. Yes, they were big sponsors, patrons of the arts. And the 2 Piatigorsky Cups were lovely tournaments, and the games are still revered today. And I've got the books about it. Anyway, going off at a tangent. Here is Petrosian playing against the one and only Lothar Schmidt. So there's lots and lots of quotations. The age of the anti-hero, they're calling that, Petrosian. Not sure about that. He didn't have a different approach, and it wasn't swashbuckling. But I do not share the viewpoint that Petrosian never wanted to become world champion. I think he found the chain of office pretty, debilitating. As I think towards the end of his reign, Spassky did too. Here's David Bronstein playing Keres in 1950. Well-travelled, well-heeled Rui Lopez there. See? And this Keres Reshevsky. In this position, wrote Reshevsky, I had to survive. I love that. Reshevsky, because he was prodigy and professionally backed by his parents, travelled Europe as a little boy in a sailor suit and met Charlie Chaplin. Whether Charlie Chaplin was that cheered up about it, I don't know, but it's mentioned in his book. Well, there's the book. If you're in the US, you will find it has been updated, but in England, it hasn't. So you need to get out your catalogues, and I can't help you. Normally can, but on this occasion I can't. Now, I've been giving you a bit of background. Here's a whopper. If this isn't a coffee table book, it's a coffee table tome. The World of Chess by Anthony Saidy and Norman Lessing. This book was written the best part of 50 years ago, and I remember plucking up the courage to buy it because I didn't want my parents to think I spent such a lot of money. I'll show you how long ago it was. It's published by a Ridge Press book, Collins, London and Glasgow. And was special photography by Norman Schneider. Whether in fact that's the same Schneider that popularised 2B3 against the Sicilian, I do not know. I'm not about to read out the masthead, but a lot of people were involved. 1974, so it's not quite 50 years ago. This is the book which was written to clash with, and beautifully so, the outpouring from Fisher Spassky, 1972. And if you look at some of the photography, you will see that it's most pages, possibly even all pages, are worthy of framing. In fact, I've got 2 copies of this book, so if anybody is interested in buying one, would they get in contact with me, and I'll see what I can do for you. Not all books cover themselves in glory. Who's this with a cigar sitting back in his chair? It is Marcel Duchamp. I've spent a very great deal, though not recently, time studying his life and works, and I'm none the wiser now, but I did enjoy myself. Here we are at Regalia Emilia. Here's Edmar Mednis. It says senior master. He's become a grandmaster. There he is giving a simul. And there's a gentleman with a straw up his nose, probably from the Brady Bunch. Mrs. Brady, Mr. Brady. Oh, hi, Alice. And there he is, struggling mightily. This is coffee house chess. These salons or whatever were more popular in the US and in Holland, but in England they don't really find focus too well. They do exist, but a bit thin on the ground and perhaps not so wonderful. Here's a collector of sets, old sets. David Hafler of Philadelphia. There he is with his little sets, not so little sets. Clearly, he breathes different air than I do. As far as I'm concerned, chess is about games, but not sets. But nevertheless, I have immense respect. The old army game, I have great respect for his preoccupation, shall we say. They go into the history. Here are some of the old pieces, and very ornate they look too. I don't think these are going to be used in your local chess club. Swisses. Guys riding on an elephant. More Orientals. Again, I'm sure worth seeing in their own right, but nothing much to do with my world. But there we are. Shogi pieces. A lot of love and planning went into this book. It says Kaiser, that is the goddess of chess, begins her checkered career. Two ladies doing anything other than play chess. The Mutual Admiration Society. You know how old that is, they say. It was Tempera on Wood from Padua. Don't tell Shakespeare. Repetición de Amores y Arte de Ajedrez, written by Lucina about 1497. So watch out, Christopher Columbus. I've only schoolboy Spanish. I shouldn't really have spoken Spanish there. Anyway, let's look on, passing on. Let's look some ivory chess. Which looks like advertising. I suppose it's might have been on the chess board or the chess box with the pieces in it. There, the top one. Here we come to the more knockabout humour of Gilray or similar. Some old codgers, bewigged and stumbling. The audience probably knows more about chess than they do. I think the bloke with the magnifying glass is about to pull his chair away. There we are. The least I can do is tell you who the artist was. One moment. I'm giving up here. No, it doesn't seem to say. I expect at some point it does say. Oh, it's Crookshank, and it's the game of chess from 1814. Catches fiercely belligerent mood of contestants. Kibitzer at right. Kibitzer is the commentator that's unwelcome and says, you know, you shouldn't have done that. You should have moved the knight. Well, I don't know where you were looking. Anyway. We're coming up to the more scientific age. There's a picture of Philidor. Yeah. Who was also a musician and composer, but a master strength player, and he also put pen to paper, which of course posterity always appreciates. And here's Napoleon, who was a bit of an old fraud, I think, on the chessboard. And most of the games are probably apocryphal, and they weren't played by Napoleon anyway. He was probably out in Elba and didn't even know. And here is Staunton, who didn't design the chess pieces, but gave his name to them. And they were launched in 1851 because of the Great Exhibition. Staunton has a hat here. Nothing brilliant about having a hat, I'm sure. And here he is with some other, it says Shakespearean actor, scholar, and self-proclaimed world chess champion, not without some justice. In other words, justification. He was a pivotal figure in British chess, wrote a chess column. He wrote more than that. He wrote the handbook, which I suppose I should come on to explain at some future point. I've got some copies of it, reprints as well. Howard Staunton. And here we are, gentleman of French chess. And any amount of cigar smoking spectators and sozzled and like me. So that was coffee, I'm sure. The flashing meteor. There's only one person that could have been that. Paul Charles Morphy. There's a nice old picture. I nearly said photograph, but of course it's not that. It's a lithograph. Sorry, lithograph. I was told off about that. I put lithograph, but it isn't. Here's Morphy again, somewhat distant. And here he is playing the Café de la Régence, which was in Paris, I think. Sounds like it was. Playing 8 games simultaneously, which, let's face it, not being a record by modern standards, is not easy. More ornate pieces. Yes. And here we have Wilhelm Steinitz. This guy here, little man. This guy. He taught us all to play chess, it said. I don't quite know about that, but he was world champion at the end of the 19th century and deposed by Lasker. And here he is again, bearded. I'm going to spool ahead. Here's Petrosian becoming world champion. I'm sure as much in relief as joy. There we are, look. He was Armenian. And he was to die of cancer youngish. Here's Spassky, sporting a very nice jacket. Don't know about his chest, but his jackets were excellent. There we are. Spassky's still alive, the last of the great champions. He doesn't play anymore, but for all of that, he knew when to give up and retire, and that's possibly why he's lived as long as he has. And here's Bobby arriving at Reykjavik for one of the games, people putting microphones in his face. Oh, Mr. Fisher. There we are. Note the long reach. And this king, which appears... This king, which appears on first aid covers for the philatelists amongst you. There you are. Well, there we are. This book is called The World of Chess. It's heartily recommended. If you would like a copy of it, get in contact with me. I'll see what I can do for you. This has been Chess Book Reviews from the Chess Parrot 86. I'm James Pratt, and so are you.